Edu Arctic2, Polar Research for Education, innovative program in Poland and Norway. Webinars.
I'm a researcher working here up in the high north, so I hope that I can give you a few small introduction to plastic and other pollutions all the way to the Arctic. Actually, it is all over the Arctic so far as well. So, oh, page is not moving. Let's see. There. So, this is the picture from this morning from my place. This was about 7:30 in the morning. So this is the offices, and there's a hotel part here. And actually just there you see a window, and that is the window where I'm just now. So this is how it looks like. It's a little bit less snow than average, so it used to be about this high on the pole, which is 75 centimeters. So below you see some of the outfits during the other seasons. I'm just trying to make the, yeah, no, I discovered something. I always learn some new things with this program, so now I learned one more. Okay, so here you see my place in the high north. So I see there is people from Poland, and I'm not sure if the rest where you're coming from, but I see there's new people coming attending as well, so welcome to everybody. So I'm Paul, I'm working here, and I will talk about the Arctic. Yeah. So first, plastic. Plastic is a synthetic material which is compounded by polymers. You see different types of polymers. So this is actually molecules binded together in long, like threads. That is basically what a polymer is. However, the plastic polymers is a little bit more special. They are this ethane molecule, which is then 2 carbons and 4 hydrogens, which is combined with a double binding. And then when you mix 2 of them, then you get this, and then you have to put a little bit of energy into this mix, and then you will have a polyethylene. So the polyethylene is then a mix of these ones, as you see there, which is then binded up to maybe 1 million or more of these in small threads. This is the basic plastic. So in oil, you can utilize from 1 liter of crude oil, you can utilize about half a liter of this ethane to make polymers. So it's actually quite cheap to extract and quite cheap to made by the processes now, but you need a piece of energy in here. Basically, plastic is made out of these 7 main types. So this is polyethylene, and then you have high densities, and then you have vinyls, and low density polyethylenes, polypropylene, polystyrene, etc. So then in this other group, there is quite a big variance. I need to do several things to make it, but these 2 is the most common ones. So you see, when you look on a bottle of drinking things, like this is a Christmas soda with water in. So reuse this, then you can see you have LDP and HDPE, for example, and then this is the type that you can find on the bottles to see what type of plastic has been applied. So even the watch, the clothings, a lot of other things, and these days we have these fabulous things. Much of this is plastic. So when you throw this, you throw actually quite a bit of plastic. I hope you knew that. Plastic is very important for us. They are used in everything around, and because it's cheap, it's made into quite a lot of things, so including packages of the food, apples, here cucumbers, for example, lines, book things, and different types. This is made of the plastic. The plastic has been increasing fantastically in production, and this is an old graph. In this graph, the production in 21 was approximately up here compared, so it was more than 500 million tons, which is said to be the last year's productions, even though there was much less produced because of the pandemic. But it's interesting how this has been moving on and starting in 1950s and then accelerating. So this is one of the shorelines here up in the north of Norway. This is after the winter storms. So the winter storms transport this onto land, quite high up to land. Otherwise it will be just down where the waves is going. But here you see a quite nice variety of plastic components. Mainly plastic. There are some driftwoods and other things as well, but basically most of this is plastic. The plastic is coming from different places, not only from the local ones. It's this is from Bulgaria. I don't think that any of the Bulgarian plastic will manage to come here, or at least very little of it. But as well here you have from Manila. Actually, this thing from Manila could be possible to reach us here up in the high north. And this is here you see a picture that you can see the gyres of waters, which is then making gyres of the plastic, which is aggregating plastic. So in here there is islands that have been made out of plastic, and some of them is extremely big and actually can make problems for ship transportation. But it seems to be gathering on the top. But below this surface, there is currents going the other way. So when the plastic is starting sinking from the surface, it will go down and then it will move to other places. And some of this very interesting thing, there was a ship up here about 20 years ago that sunk. And in this, it was small yellow ducks, plastic ducks. The things went down, and then after some years, on the very deep water, then there suddenly came up ducks, and ducks started to appear up here in the Arctic, and also appearing up close to Iceland, and then suddenly as well in this northern area. So it took about 20 years from the deep water in the Pacific to reach the shores of Atlantic. That's fascinating. So this is just some papers indicating the work of scientists and other people, which is seeing the plastic to increase. And it is increasing in the north because of, like you see here, you see the Gulf Stream, for example, which is then transporting all the debris, the plastic things from the middle oceanic, the tropical zones, up to the Arctic zones. So this is a fantastic driveway of plastic transportation, and also other type of pollutants. But it's just to see the coloration here is showing the different type of severity of plastic. There's a lot of these things that you can find on the internet when you start searching, so it's quite interesting to see, and also to see how this is moving. So locally, my place is just behind the map there, somewhat, And here you see the Gulf Stream going along to the Norwegian coast, being the Norwegian coastal stream. And then this makes the transportation from the central Atlantic into the Arctic. And then this blue one is the the cold Arctic water, which is going down again towards the tropics. But it's fantastic volumes of plastic. So here you see about 12 million tons annually. It's 27,000 tons daily, which is then dropped to the sea. Of course, there has been some decreases in much of this dropping of plastic by the oceans, but still much of this is actually coming from other countries. So it's not the ship themselves, which is the most important thing, but it is the local dropping. Like you saw this picture from Manila. That is actually the things going on in Africa, in Europe, several places, in the South America, in Northern America, and all this is coming. And it's not only what is dropped today. The shorelines has been used as garbage cans, where they put the garbage and then put the sand above to keep it there. But then later on, this has been eroded away by the sea waves and such, and then this is released into the oceans. And this continues actually quicker. So we see that despite of the acts for cleaning ships and boats and countries, there's a lot of places where the pollution of plastic is increasing because of this old sins that is going to be released. One other important thing is down here. About 70% of the plastic actually sinks because it's combined to other things. And then it's about 15% which is floating in the water itself, just staying in the water, neither floating or neither sinking. So this is unfortunately in Norwegian, but now you can train to learn Norwegian a little bit. This here you see number of years down here, so 600 years. And here you see the different type of, this is Pampers for babies. They are lasting approximately 200 years. A ticket for the bus is about 3 weeks. Styrofoam, 50 years at least. And paper, plastic boxes, then hermetics. And actually some of the worst thing is plastic bottles. They last for 400 years or even more. And the problem is the polyethylene is actually not degraded into carbon combines or oxygen combines. It is staying there as a polyethylene micro or nanoparticles. So even then, when the bottle is dissolved, it is not disappeared. The plastic is still in the environment, and that is one of the fantastic problematics of plastic. Sorry. So some years ago there was a beaked whale that was had to die because of the plastic, so they took the life from it. Inside in the stomach of this beaked whale, it was a lot of plastic. I don't remember exactly, 60 liters or something. And this filled up the stomach, and then this animal was suffocated, and therefore it was very weakened, and then therefore it needed to die because there was no rescue for it. And luckily this whale made a lot of focus on the plastic, what plastic is doing in the environment. And this is one of millions of catastrophes. So whales, seals, turtles, fish, cows and everything is actually influenced by the plastic when they are eating these things. So there's a lot of birds found dead, not only seabirds, but land terrestrial bird is also found by plastic in the stomach. So here you see a polar bear that has been attached to a fishing net, a trolling net. Here's a reindeer that has been caught by a fishing net that was stranded from a ship or something. And here the animal suffocated and died a slow death with this thing connected to the antlers, entangled. Then we have these things where, because seals and dolphins is very playful, so they use these plastic things to investigate them and look on them and play with them. So they throw them up in the air and catch them back and all these things. And suddenly they put the head through this thing, and then this they don't have our arms to help or our fingers to help, so they are not that maneuverable. And this means that this plastic is then catching actually the seal. And this makes quite a lot of bad damages. So we have seen several of these things up here, and in other areas along Norwegian coast this is not very common, but it is actually occurring. So during one day we might see one of such seals. Oh, it's actually very bad. So when you look on the water, a plastic bag looks quite much like a jellyfish. So like this is looking like this that you can sting you, or this other jellyfish which is not stinging. And actually jellyfish is food for different animals and birds. So some of the sea turtles, especially this huge leather-backed sea turtle, which is 2 or 3, 4 meters, they are specialized on eating jellyfish. And this is then often taken as a part of the food when it's a plastic. Then albatrosses and fulmar, one of these birds looking like a gull, for example. There's a lot of them which is done. So the problem here is in the plastic there is other components. It's not only the plastic, it's the color, it's the thing that makes this soft, or making the string here to what you call move and such, and all these properties of the plastic, like in the telephone cover and such, is combined with different minerals and other components, which is then being poisonous. So this means that this is working in the body of these animals which is eating them, not only the big thing, but also the smaller fragments of the plastic. So this make a lot of pollution, different type of pollutions into the salt water, but also fresh water, and also actually soil and in air. So this is a fulmar. This is looking like a gull, but it is actually close connected to the albatrosses. So here you see some of the samples of different things, because this is eating the small crustaceans, the small shrimp and such things, which is on the surface. And this plastic looks like such small animals. And then this is trying to eat it because they are hungry. Okay, so the what we call microplastic is then about 0.5 millimeter or bigger, a little bit bigger, and then you have the big plastic particles and such. So basically microplastic is visible, and then the next level is less, which is 0.5 millimeter, and this is then the nanoplastic. And the nanoplastic is fantastic. Here you see a small plankton, filtering plankton, and this green thing inside here is then a piece of microplastic or nanoplastic. So nanoplastic is usually not visible by the naked eye. How to make the plastic visible? Most of the plastic types will be visible when you use black light. So you can use a fluorescent light, or you can use this UV total UV wavelength black light. And then you will see them here in the fluorescence. They look green. In the black light, they will look purplish. It's fantastic. These small plastic things not only go in the intestine part, but they also go into the body. And when they are eaten by next animal, like a small fish, this will go into the fish stomach and intestine, but then it will migrate through the intestine and into the body of the fish. And especially when you have talking about the nanoplastic, much more of this will migrate into the body. This is not only the microplastic different types, it also is an important part of which type of components which is mixed with the plastic to make this plastic migrate through the intestine and into the body of us. And we human, we are a little bit later, you will see, but we have a possibility to gain plastic from air. So then this is about collecting garbage, plastic, which is happening quite, this is from a practical part. Outside in the far north, you see this, the star up there. So this is in the Barents Sea, that the former, this picture is from that area. And then this is the catch from about 100 meters shoreline. So it took, the shoreline is behind the pupils there, and it took about 2 hours, 3 hours for the pupils. What is interesting is to like here on the picture here, to identify what type of plastic or debris which is found. So here we make the categories of different type of pollutants. And this is used in a system named OSPAR, Oslo Paris Marine Contract Treaty, which is then making an international way of fighting plastic at sea. So here we have a system of how to put the system of registering the different type of plastic components and debris from shorelines. There's a lot of different things, and when you do this, you can analyze what type of things these children was finding at the seashore and where it is originating. So we go back to the clothing, and this, when we wash our clothes, this is the results. The clothes is getting less and less bulky or thinner and thinner, and then that's because we wash away the plastic components and other components. Wool is not that dangerous, but the plastic is such. They go into the food chain. Here's another interesting thing. This is from a street, and here what you see here, inside here in most of the filters, 2 years ago it was only plastic filters. Now some of these companies making plastic, making cigarettes is making a type of other filters which is not plastic. But there's a lot of these filters, and when they are in the street, they are torn away with the tires of the cars and other things, and then they are washed into the system, which is then flowing into the river and then flowing into the sea. So this is one of the big problems that we still can see. Another thing is like painting on the road. This is plastic. So when this and this is a track a track from a wheel. So this is also plastic. So what is here? The wheel of the motorbike is not rubber. This is plastic. So when we are driving these things, we get the plastic torn off the wheel, and after a few years we need to change the wheel, the rubber, or plastic then to get the full a new set of wheels. And this is then getting plastic which is going to the ground, but also small nanoplastic which is going into the air and which we are inhaling, we are breathing. And this plastic is then shown for some genetic group of people to be more hazardous, so they get more lung severe problems. So this is one thing. And one of the thing there is, well, some don't get sick in the lungs directly, but the plastic, nanoplastic, is going through the lungs, because the lungs is a system of moving air and other gases from the body and out, and oxygen into the body. This transports also some of the nanoplastics. And this means that we get nanoplastic in our bodies, which is then working in our body. And this nanoplastic is then working into the cells, the different parts of the cells. Here you have different components which is able to transport themselves because of the combination of other metals. So of course the cell needs nutrient, and therefore there is already spore minerals like iron and such, which is going naturally into the body, into the cells, to build our body up. And this is then the plastic is joining this transportation and get into the cells. And the most important problem is when the nanoplastic, like here, is attaching into the cell, into the genome, and then it works to hinder or stop the genetic functioning of the DNA. The other pollutants, we have metals, organic components, different radioactivity, and we have other type of wastes, which is a big box of big black box. Where does it come from? Some pollutions is locals, transported some few meters. Some is more regional, some transported some kilometers, and some is long transported, and that's thousands of kilometers. And then we have pollutants, which is global, all over Tellus. This is some of the big problems of our future. This is the clean Arctic nature. It is far from clean when you look into the details, unfortunately. Most of the problems here is some is regional, some is local. Most of them is long transported, and some is global. So, do you know what this is? This is an instrument to monitor radioactivity. So this is here it sucks air in here, and here is a sensor, and in here it is a filter, and the filter is then collecting the dusts and microdusts from the atmosphere, from the air. So this is sucking more than 20 cubic meters per hour. And this snow weight is then making the alarm if the radioactivity is going higher than 20 microsieverts, for example. And this is interesting because this is monitoring of radioactivity. And we had an accident in Japan, in Fukushima, some years ago, 2011. It's 10 years ago. Approximately these dates, so it's a few days later now. But this accident made the understanding much more clear for politicians of the world. How small is our globe? So this is a picture from some hours later. You can follow up here, you see the hours. So, and then you can see the spread of the radioactivity from the Fukuyama nuclear power plant. That is disturbed through the northern and going into our areas up here. So it took about 8 days to go all through. Fantastic! The world is so small. So even though the wind was blowing the other way, this was even transported up here, so we could detect it on this machine that you just saw. So of course, this is the periodic system, and here you see most of these things here is actually working as poisons. Some of them is working also as nutrient to our body. So hydrogen and oxygen and carbon and such, but in the wrong combinations, this is very toxic. Of course, if I'm going to talk about the pollution from all of these ones, like the iron, the cobalt, the nickel, the copper, and this up here is actually some of the more poisonous ones in the ecosystem as a general, because they are general polluters. They are the most common ones. Then you have these other ones, which is more random, more smaller level, but still works very heavily as polluters. The problem is like nickel and cobalt and copper and iron. They are important in the production of industries. Gold and silver, of course, is platinum and such is interesting, but they are actually pollutants as well when they works to the right combinations. So just a couple of things which is of high importance to the north is the long transported ones. So here we have one of them, which is then mercury. So mercury looks like this. It's basically floating, even though in metallic state. So and then mercury is found in something named cinnabar, which is this type of stone. And this occurs quite naturally in a lot of places in Europe and worldwide. But normally it's low concentrations, parts per millions of mercury. Mercury works in our brains. It destroys the combination, the transportation of the what you call this myelin layers on the nerve cells. So nerve signals is not going correctly. This is metal mercury, and then the interesting thing is we can develop this into something named methyl mercury, or organic metal mercury, which is a process happening in bacteria, basically. So in the swamps, the low lakes where you have small, low water, and quite a lot of green stuff, things, not vegetation, plants, but this bacterial and algae. There, this production of mercury coming from the atmosphere is used, or coming from the land, is then used by this into a system which is then producing this methyl mercury. So methyl mercury is mercury which has been transformed by biological organisms into a biological substance, which is then working. And this is the poison which we basically get. We can get the poison directly from this, then it's very acute normally. But this methyl mercury is the mercury which we get through our body, what we are eating and such, which is accumulated through the food chain. And the problem here in the north is the climate change. So when the climate change is getting wetter and warmer, more bacteria and algae is able to grow and produce. This means that the mercury is then have a higher possibility to turn into the methyl mercury. So then it's getting more available to the ecosystems. The source of the mercury in our place is basically as well from the picture you saw by the radioactivity. Interesting, because in China and other countries, in Africa, in India, they use a lot of brown coal, and brown coal contain mercury as well. And this mercury is then transported through the air after they have been through the chimneys of power plants and other things, and then this goes to the air and then it disappears all over the total globe. So it's not only a problem of the Arctic, it's a problem of all areas, but here we see the changes because of the climate changes going quicker. Okay. So there's a lot of mercury coming from anthropogenic things. Mercury is a natural component and it has the place and function in nature, in natural systems. Basically, it comes from the volcanoes, and then it's also then released through different type of soil destruction, reshape, landscape changes. So we're making big railroads or big highways through a landscape. Then this is in Central Europe, this works to release mercury. And then forest fires and other things, this is making the change of the natural mercury going into the ecosystems instead of staying in the soil combined with the minerals. That's fantastic. It's so interesting. Yeah. So, of course, mercury is a very high human problem. So in Japan, there was a place named Minamata. It's someplace here. And then this area was a place where they made paints. And in the paint, they had mercury. Because mercury is poisonous, like as we said, and this when it's highly concentrated, it kills like vegetations, algae, and other things that grows on the ships and houses and all such. This painting plant was dropping the remnants into the sea, and when local people was fishing and such, the people get intoxicated by the mercury, and this became a very big problem. And then it was turning the eyes of the world community, and they made the Minamata Convention to reduce and to control the mercury emissions, not only to air but also to all types. So here you see the mercury that was put to air in 2010, and you see the darker color, the more mercury is emitted. And the fantastic is most of this some of this go to the southern hemisphere, and the rest go to the northern hemisphere. That's interesting. So here you see some factories in China, and then it is here you can see the smog, the clouds from here, and this is the smog coming from this factory. Here you see Northern Korea, China, and here you see a map of the production sites in China with the emissions coming from the different places. And actually you can see this smog here. This is the smog of containing mercury, which is blowing in the air and landing in Arctic 2 weeks later. There is also, like I said, the climate is changing, and one of this is we are melting the permafrost. This makes emissions available of mercury. Like I said, mercury occurs also naturally in the environment, and through years of different type of processes, the mercury is floating together and accumulating in layers or in stratas or in small reservoirs inside in the soil or inside ground. And when permafrost laying on top of this is melting, and then the water is flowing up with the groundwater, then the mercury is distributed into the ecosystems again. And we started to see these things like you see on this presentation here in the news. This made a quite big shock for people when so much of mercury suddenly became available to the ecosystems. Lead is another thing which is very widespread, but this belongs to the group that is normally not far spread. It's regarded as local sources. But one of the main sources of this is cars. So driving car is when it's not electric, then using petrol type, this makes emissions of lead. And here you can see the different type of different cultures actually made the influence of lead into different type of environment. So you can see how the different industrial function from the Romans, Latin period and such made the changes of the lead in environment. That's fascinating. The sources for lead is industry, car, boats, planes, exhausting engines, roads. So the asphalt itself contains lead. Because one of the things to make petrol or oil is actually triggered by lead. So naturally lead is combined always with oils. So this is used on increased concentrations in paintings for buildings and boats and such. And warfare and military make a quite big contribution to distribution of lead into different places. Landscape changes, mining. And one of the things with the lead, which is interesting, when this is very small particles, like nanoparticles, it aggregates, it connects together. So inside in a house, in a city, where you see the dust contains quite high levels of lead. This is very interesting to see how this is actually the dust in a house is actually collecting the lead, which is then making the more poisonous environment inside in the house for small children and such. So this is a different type of poisonous effect from lead. So it's something you can see, but normally we need very small levels of lead Pb into our environment before it gets problematic. I will now show you a little bit. So if you can read Russian, you will see here it's a nickel. So here is a nickel melter, and this is a place where there was melting stones in favor to extract nickel and copper. So every day this nickel melter produced approximately 1 tons of nickel dust going to there and 500 kilos of copper going to there and some other metals. And this is the place where I'm staying just now. So this is the border between Norway and Russia. And this place here is the place that collected small mice. These pieces you see here, small mammals, voles and shrews. Yeah. Marion, let's see if I could.
I think that is because the internet connection is a bit slow and your PowerPoint is probably a bit high resolution. So unfortunately it hangs a bit.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I will try to move slower, but time is running. I'm sorry for the technical things. That's far out of my what you call competence. But what we look in this through 20 years of a series of collecting animals, we collected the liver and the kidneys from mice in this area to see how the pollutants were working. Maybe it is this. Hilda, I think maybe it is actually the pictures. Is this? Maybe this is better, Marion. I learned something new now. Thank you.
I think it
So
is
this is
the
the
pictures on the next slide. So they're probably a bit high, a bit too many bytes. So
yeah,
they
yeah,
keep dropping
yeah.
through. But maybe I can share the presentation with the participants later. I
Of
can make
course.
a PDF of it and send it to them.
Yeah, to all of them if you like. So please just put on the chat if you like to get a copy. So I will do that. We will do that. Hilde does that. So this is lead in the mice. So here you see the kidneys, and here you see the liver. So the levels here, this is in one mice, this is another mice. So here you see the individual variations. And here you see as well the individuals in autumn, and this was in autumn 2007 and 2015. We see that the levels is much more higher. So you see here on the axis, the y-axis, is very different numbers. And we see that the lead has increased quite much. So the average here in 2015 is about 0.5, 0.6, which is up here. And the level in 2007 is approximately 0.4. So it's doesn't sound very much, but in a population, and because of this is here is getting very close to more heavily toxic effects. This is actually a very dramatic change in the lead concentrations in these mice. This is mercury. So blue is the kidney and red is the liver from these individuals. And here you see the concentration of mercury in 2007. This is approximately like 0.3. And here in 2015, the average is about 0.8 or something. So it's a half milligram higher per gram dry weight. This is fantastic increase, or really horrible actually. So the mercury level is increasing. And like I said, the climatic thing is changing. So the metal which is falling down from other places is then having a bigger success in turning into methyl mercury, which is then influencing in the pollution to our mice, for example. This is also making the effect to the rest of the food chain. So also other places is increasing the pollution. So we used different methods to look into this, and one of the things, as you know, all type of metal and all of the components of the periodic system has a possibility to go into different stages of isotopes. So the isotopes can be natural isotopes. Then, as you know, the isotope is when you change the core of the atom. So it's this neutrons which is changed. So you have a different number of or weight of the neutrons. That makes an isotope. So you don't change the electrons. You don't change the plus ones. This makes the isotopes, and this we can analyze. And we did this analysis along in this system, and a very story told short. What we see, some of the increase of the lead, which is local, that came from gasoline. So it was European gasoline has a level of this, and this is the level of Russian gasoline. So one of the fantastic things that happened about 10 years ago, the border between Norway and Russia was open more for people to go to Russia to make shopping, and Russians to come to Norway to make shopping. One of the big things that the local people in Norway was buying was fuel, benzene and diesel. So they bought much more diesel and benzene from Russia. And this Russian diesel has other components of isotopes in the lead compared to the Europeans. So we could see that the increase of lead in the nature was because the Norwegians went to Russia to buy more cheap petrol and oil and diesel, which then made more pollution on the Norwegian side. Isn't that fantastic? That's a very interesting sustainability concept to understand how mechanisms of free trade is working. So basically this, and then the Mercury problem was actually quite another story, which was happening with basically the pollutions coming from the far away, which is increasing and aggregating. So this metal is falling down, and there has been quite a big reservoir around the globe about mercury. Okay, then I'm to the end. So it should be 40 minutes. I'm sorry, I'm too long. But you have any questions more, please?
Yes, you have a question.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they have many questions because this is so, I would say, concerning. You know, this explosion of plastic, it's so dramatic. Yeah. So let's see. We have time. There's nobody waiting for the classroom, so we have time.
Yeah, so there's one question about pollution are known from many decades now. How can they be so much more releases between 2007 and 2015 for the mice? I thought there were already measures taken to prevent this. Yes, there are taken measures, and the different type of pollutants is regulated very strongly. But because, like I said in the beginning about lead is naturally occurring in all petrols. So when we say leaded oil or unleaded oil, it is no regard to this natural part of the lead which is in the oil or in the diesel or in the benzene. So it is always lead inside diesel and benzene, because that's a part of the natural production in nature actually. But there is not enough things just like the mercury. The mercury has not been understood properly, and there's so much big money combined to it, so it is a difficult task to find a solution upon. But like you said, we saw this nickel melter, which I just showed you a few slides ago. It was closed down this Christmas because of the pollutions. So then to make nickel production greener, they shut down that production and started the production in another place. So they transport the nickel ore, the nickel stones from this area to another place where they are extracting in a more environmental process. So there is measures going on, but the problems is going so much quicker now because driven of the volumes that has been deposited. And like you said, this Flambeau lead that was deposited that we saw in the mice, it was not the same year. It was the process of what's happening through the plants and going up. So the nature is always replying later than we think. That is one of the problems to understand how pollution is happening. Okay.
Watch other recordings from webinars on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/EduArctic. Edu Arctic2, from polar research to scientific passion, innovative nature education in Poland and Norway receives a grant of 240,000 euros received from Iceland, Liechtenstein and Norway under EEA funds.